Good afternoon, all. We're going to take a look today at one of the key titles that DC Comics running at the minute as part of the Rebirth universe. It's called Justice League of America. Now, it's not to be confused with Justice League. This is very much an offshoot group, which we'll discuss in a minute. But it's a very different kind of league, Batman being the sort of common denominator between the two, but he's not formed a league that goes alongside the main one. Two books have been released so far. There was two trade paperbacks, should I say. The first one was The Road to Rebirth, which sort of sets the scene for the JLA being formed. It's a series of one-shots based around each individual character. Then it shows how sort of Batman brings them all together, and then the first trade paperback, which came out last week, Volume 1, The Extremists, which we'll talk about also. But just sort of to explain how this has come about, this kind of spins out of the recent Justice League versus Suicide Squad run. Without wanting to spoil that for anyone who's not read it yet, at the end of that particular run, Batman decides that he needs to form a new Justice League, not to replace the existing one, but to sort of run alongside it, if you will, or to run as a different entity. He decides that he wants a new team with sort of mortal characters, not godlike characters, trying to show that heroes can be flawed, and that allows the public to find them more relatable. Because if you think about it, I suppose the classic Justice League stereotype and the lineup that's running now, which is your classic big hitters really: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, and the two current Green Lanterns. They're very sort of perfect characters, the likes of Superman and Wonder Woman. How does your sort of average person relate to those type of people? They're unflawed. There's nothing corruptible about them. They don't live in sort of shades of grey. They're very much on the right side of the moral line. So he decides that Batman needs to form a team that's not on the wrong side of it, but sort of lives in that sort of shade of grey area. So the lineup that he puts together is Lobo, Vixen, Killer Frost, Black Canary, the Ray, and the Atom. That's Ryan Choi Atom, not Ray Palmer. Reason for that is we'll explain in a minute. But this first book then, Road to Rebirth, basically just shows how they come together. As I said, after the events of the Justice League versus Suicide Squad run, Killer Frost, who at that time was sort of forcibly made to be a member of the Suicide Squad by Amanda Waller, shows a heroic side to herself. She's kind of a conflicted character, like you see in the Flash TV show. She's neither one thing nor the other. Batman recognises the good in her and arranges, shall we say, with Amanda Waller for her to be released from prison to go sort of under his wing, if that's the right word. Despite Amanda Waller's sort of judgment, but Batman gets his way, as he tends to do. So he has Killer Frost on the team, and then he decides that he needs to bring people in who he can trust, but also people can relate to. So he brings in Black Canary, Vixen. Vixen in this continuity is like a sort of African supermodel slash human rights campaigner. So she's very much on the public side. Lobo has a debt to pay to Batman. Batman sort of, again, from the story of the Justice League versus Suicide Squad, Lobo was under the brainwashing, if you will, of Maxwell Lord. So Batman managed to free him from it, so he feels like he owes Batman, so that's how he gets him. The Ryan Choi Atom is recruited by default. Batman and Lobo go to recruit the classic Atom, the Ray Palmer character. But for those who've obviously read the DC Universe Rebirth one shot would know that he's missing. He's trapped in the microverse, and Ryan Choi is his protege, his student at the university, who knows all his tech, has worked for him for many years on all his adventures. So, you know, and he's been tasked to try and find Ray Palmer. So when they get there, he explains the situation to them, and they're not interested in taking him. But, you know, he convinces them that he could be a worthy substitute for Ray Palmer. So they bring him in too. The Ray. This is an interesting character. Openly gay, which isn't that common in the DC universe. Good to see. It's, you know, it's good to have a diverse range of characters. Someone who's been shut away his whole life. His sort of mother mistakenly thought that his power was some kind of weird condition, so he was sort of kept in darkness, never to be exposed to sunlight. But he sort of manages to come away from there, embrace who he is and his power, starts living a life, and Batman brings him in too. He sets up a new base to put them into in Rhode Island. It's sort of like a version of the Batcave, but a lesser version, something he says he's had in his sort of property portfolio for a long time, and uses that to put them together. So this first one, yeah, it's quite a good read. It's basically just a series of one-shots for each of the characters to explain sort of where they are, where they sit in the Rebirth universe. And then at the end is sort of the first issue, if you will, of JLA, where Batman brings them in, recruits them, and forms a group. It's a good read. It's a good read. Written by Steve Orlando, art by a variety of people, all listed here. So it makes for a different contrast of art form, the style, the tone of it can vary from sort of issue to issue. But it's a good start. It sort of sets a scene for that group. Shades of Batman and the Outsiders, for those who remember that. So that's something I used to read as a kid in the 80s. But it's good. It's a good read, and it sets it up. Moving on from there, then, the first storyline, if you will, was collected in the trade paperback that came out a week or two ago. The Extremists is a title, again written by Steve Orlando, art by Ivan Rice and Andy McDonald. This is more of your sort of stereotypical Justice League type storyline, you know, basically an invading army from another realm, another universe, another reality. The Extremists of the title, led by this character called Lord Havoc. They basically come and decide that the Earth is not, you know, not how it should be. So they decide that they're going to restore order to the Earth by taking away the free will of the people that live on it. So, you know, classic sort of battle ensues between Batman's new group, the JLA, and said army. It does always amuse me when these things happen as to why the real Justice League don't just drop in and say that why Batman would use this group rather than... Because whilst he's in this group, he does remain a full-time member of the normal Justice League, so why he would not call upon them but bring in this new group remains to be seen. But I suppose, you know, from a storyline point of view, you couldn't have them working together. I'm sure that will come, though. I'm sure there will be an eventual crossover. Everything else crosses over, so I'm sure it will at some point. So from that point of view, it's quite a bog-standard storyline. The artwork's very nice. Well detailed, well drawn, as you can see. The action scenes are very good in it. Quite gruesome in some parts, but very well drawn, very well written. Quite a bright tone, despite the violence in it. It's not dark as such, so it's weird kind of to see Batman, who's obviously the quintessential dark character, being in a book like this where, you know, it's light in tone. There's quite a lot of humour in it. Even he himself has the odd one-liner in it, which is quite weird to see, really. It doesn't quite sort of fit the tone of the Batman that you see in his own title and in Detective Comics title, in All-Star Batman title, even in the Justice League title. You know, he remains a stoic member of that team. Yet here he is sort of leading this bunch of misfits and ne'er-do-wells, and, you know, he's very much in charge, but at the same time, he sort of empowers them to take their own path. So it's kind of a different spin on Batman from the other titles, but then I suppose maybe that's the point. You know, if you're just getting the same version of the character, why would you read this when you're already seeing him in the other titles I've just mentioned? So I suppose there's a reason for that. But overall, it's worth reading. I'm interested to see where this whole group goes, where the storyline goes with it. Again, you know, will it cross over with the main Justice League? I'm sure it will at some point. You know, it's a good read. The two make a good sort of companion piece that sets the scene, explains how and why they're together. Like I've just explained, you know, why he brings the team together, where all those characters are at before he brings them all together. And then obviously it spins off into their first campaign, their first mission, if you will. And it makes for a good read. I would recommend it. I think I still prefer the main Justice League title with those classic well-loved characters rather than these sort of, you know, C-list heroes, really. Obviously, apart from Batman, who remains DC's flagship character, I suppose, to this day. But with the others, it's, you know, you could have picked any other 5 or 6 and done it, you know, rather than this specific 5 or 6 characters. But, you know, it's early days, so let's see where it goes. Hopefully it will lead to some good stuff. You know, I suppose with the cast of characters, you know, some of them are more expendable than others, so maybe that'll lead to, you know, maybe characters being killed off or the people joining the group. Who knows? But certainly I would recommend anyone who wants to dive in to get hold of this one and the second one and, you know, read them on, see where it goes for yourself. But it's definitely worth picking up. Okay, and that's the Justice League of America so far, DC Rebirth. If you haven't read it, pick it up and enjoy. Okay, see you later, bye.